The first time I attended Momentum, it was a sermon on money and giving. At the time, I was just checking out churches. I wouldn't even consider myself a Christian. And I thought, oh boy, here's a church that just wants to take my money and see how much they can squeeze out of me. But for some odd reason, I kept coming back to Momentum. I don't know what it was, but I felt at home there.
My wife Crystal and I, we often joke about it or often laughed about it. But before coming to Momentum, she attended a church pretty much by herself for 10 years. And when the subject of tithing would come up, which is giving 10% of your income to God, I'd often tell her something to the effect that you don't need to tithe. You donate enough of your time, and that's got to be worth something, right?
Tithing is hard, and it's never easy, and I struggle with it as well. But when I am struggling with it, I try to think about why I tithe. And I tithe because I love Jesus and I want other people to experience His love and to also have a relationship with Him as well.
I had a roommate who went to a retreat one week. It was just a bunch of college students who went to kind of like a church camp, and they had a guy named Terry Rush who came and spoke to them. And Wayne thought it was such a good retreat that he recorded a portion of it, on the old VHS tapes back in the Stone Age. But I remember watching one of those tapes, and I'll never forget what he had to say. He went to 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 6, and it's talking about giving. Whoever reaps, whoever sows sparingly reaps sparingly, and whoever sows generously reaps generously. And it's the idea that, like a garden, if you want a lot of plants, if you want to grow a lot of vegetables, you better sow a lot of seed. And Terry challenged us. He says, hey, look, I know you guys are college students, you don't have any money, but you need to make the decision now to be generous. Because being generous has nothing to do with your income. It has to do with your attitude and your willingness to give and your excitement about giving. He said, you need to make that decision now. Because if you make the decision now, you're creating a habit that when you're young, you'll follow when you get older.
A few years after coming to Momentum, they offered an elective course which was called Financial Peace University. It was a 13-week course on how to manage your money. The first thing that I noticed was that I had spent so much money on going out to dinner and eating out. It was embarrassing, to be honest with you. I realized that had I not spent all that money on going out to dinner, I could have given 10% to the church and it would have been pretty much equal amount of money.
In 2012, we started attending Momentum, and slowly but surely we started to donate a little bit more and give a little bit more on Sunday mornings. Eventually we got to the point where it was like, hey, you know what, it's just easier, let's just just do it online. And as time went on and we started giving a little bit more, we never really tithed. It was never really the full 10%. My wife Crystal and I, we kind of had a little bit of a conversation about it and said, my thought was, hey, if we're going to do this Jesus thing and we're gonna say we trust Him, then let's trust Him all the way. Let's tithe and let's trust Him with our finances. So very shortly after that, we started tithing.
I know for many people that starting to follow Jesus begins with going to church. And although Momentum will most likely not reach my family because they don't live nearby, I pray that there are people in that area that are investing and giving generously to their church so that hopefully their church could reach my family and they would start to follow Jesus.
After a few months, I realized pretty quickly that living off of 90% was just as easy as living off of 100%. God asks us to give Him control of all of our life and not just some parts of it.
But I was only at a job for probably a little over a year at this point, and I could kind of see the writing on the wall that chances are I was going to get laid off pretty soon. Once I was laid off, I felt that it was just really important that we just continue to give our 10% to God. It's easier to do when things are good. It's a little bit more difficult to do when maybe things aren't so good.
I've seen some of my best friends, including my husband Josh, start following Jesus at Momentum. Some of my best memories include meeting someone for the first time on Sunday morning, inviting them to Mo Group and watching them grow spiritually. And then eventually they start to follow Jesus and are baptized. And I too took the same route, and I'm always eternally thankful for the people at Momentum who were able to trust God with their finances before they even knew who I was, before they knew my name, and even before I lived in Cleveland. so that I would have a place where I could go to learn about God.
We had an opportunity to participate in the multi-site fund here at Momentum, and now we have 2 campuses. We used to be 1, and there's people who didn't know Jesus, that because that happened, they had an opportunity to know Jesus, and many of them have decided to become Christians. And I've spent money in life, probably like most of us, on things that some of them worked out great. Others, it's like it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But I've never felt that way about money that I gave to God, to the things that He's involved in. I would just challenge you this morning, if you're thinking about giving and what the scriptures say about giving, take the challenge that Terry gave us, and it's really a biblical challenge out of 2 Corinthians 9, verse 6. Make the decision to give generously. Even now, make a decision to give generously and watch what God's going to do in your life. I promise you, investing in things that are going to outlive you is well worth it. There's nothing that you could put money in this world that's better and more satisfying than that.